They say if you walk a lonely road at midnight and the fog grows thick enough to swallow your footsteps, you might hear it before you see it. A low growl, soft at first, like the earth clearing its throat. Then the scrape of claws, the gleam of eyes that don't blink. Some call it the black shuck, others the Barghest. But everyone who's seen it says the same thing. Once the black dog crosses your path, something in your life will change. Tonight, we walk that road together, through the centuries of shadow and superstition, through folklore's fiercest guardians and its most faithful monsters. This is the legend of the black dog and the human fear that shaped it. Welcome back, night travelers. I'm Wild Dragons, your guide through the folklore that prowls after dark. Tonight, we follow a phantom older than cities, older than nations, a creature made of smoke and omen, of loyalty and death. The black dog isn't a single beast. It's a breed of fear itself, a shadow that changes shape depending on the land, the weather, the watcher. But let's start where the fog is thickest, in East Anglia, where the coastline breaks like old bone against the North Sea. First, the black shuck, also known as the devil dog of the storm. Story has it that in the summer of 1577, lightning split the sky above Blytheburgh Church. The congregation knelt in prayer, thunder rolling like the breath of God, and then the doors burst open. Through the smoke and rain came Black Shuck, a hound as tall as a man, eyes burning like coals in a forge. He ran the length of the nave, his paws silent on stone. 2 worshippers fell dead where they stood, and the creature vanished in a flash of fire. When the storm cleared, the villagers found the oak doors scorched with deep claw marks. To this day, they call them the devil's fingerprints. And guess what? You can still see them today. But others said Shuck wasn't a killer at all, only a messenger. That when he appeared beside a traveler, padding along the coastal road through the rain, it meant death had already chosen its mark. He was just the herald, walking you home. Farther north, in the wild hills of Yorkshire, they tell of the Barghest, a name thick as peat smoke on the tongue, also known as the Watcher of the Moors. This was a creature that haunted the edges of villages and graveyards, its body the size of a bull, its teeth gleaming white against fur blacker than pitch. The Barghest didn't howl like an ordinary dog. It keened, a sound that rose from the ground itself, thin and sorrowful, like the cry of the dying. Those who heard it were said to have only days left before the same darkness claimed them. But others swore the Barghest could change its shape. A man, a headless horse, even a ghostly light that drifted across the heath. The people barred their doors when the fog rolled in, whispering, "Keep the fire fed, lest the Barghest pass by." And yet, in some tales, the hound was protector rather than predator, driving away grave robbers and guarding lonely travelers. Maybe as ever, the monster reflected the man who met it. And across the water, on the Isle of Man, Yet another story took root, that of a black hound called the Moddey Dhoo, the silent sentinel. Soldiers of Peel Castle told of the creature that padded through the guardroom each night at the stroke of midnight. It never growled, never barked, only watched with burning eyes before disappearing into the dark passageways of the keep. At first, they mocked it. Then one night, a drunken sentry followed the hound down corridors, determined to learn its secret. He returned alive, but never spoke again, whispering only once that he'd seen the devil himself. After that, no man in Peel Castle would walk alone after midnight. But these are only the echoes of a much older tale. Long before Blythburgh or Peel, people believed dogs guarded the threshold between the living and the dead, the guardians of the underworld. In Greece, there was Cerberus, the three-headed hound who stood watch at Hades's gate, his jaws keeping souls from escaping. In the Norse sagas, Garmr, the blood-stained hound of hell, howled when the end of the world approached. Even in Egypt, Anubis, jackal-headed, guided souls through the desert of the afterlife. Perhaps every mysterious black dog, then, is a faint reflection of those mythic guardians, the keepers of boundaries, not evil, not holy, but necessary, because every journey from life to death or fear to understanding needs a guide that knows the dark better than we do. If the British Moors gave the black dog its shadow, the world gave it 1,000 faces. Wherever people walked between life and death, between safety and danger, something was waiting at the crossroads. For example, in the Highlands of Scotland, they feared a creature called the Cooshie, the fairy dog. It wasn't black, really, but rather a deep, deep green, the color of moss and grave grass. Massive as a bull calf, it prowled the misty hills, silent except for a single bone-deep bark. That bark was the warning, they said, before it came for your soul. But to some, the Cooshie wasn't a hunter. It was a herald, the fair folk's own psychopomp, come to carry those who had earned passage into the next world. Families would light candles at night to keep it away, not out of hatred, but respect, an acknowledgement that even death deserves ceremony. And over in Northern Europe, particularly Scandinavia and parts of Germany, there's another form, the church grim. When a new church was built, it was once tradition to bury a black dog alive beneath its foundation, a terrible sacrifice meant to bind its spirit to the grounds. That spirit became the church's eternal guardian, prowling the graveyard and howling at intruders or thieves. In those cold lands, the black dog wasn't a sign of doom, but sanctuary. It reminded people that even the sacred has shadows, and that protection often requires something or someone to stay behind in the dark. Far across the sea, in the humid dark of the Caribbean, we find the black dog prowling again, though there it moves with fire and sorcery. In Trinidadian and Jamaican folklore, people speak of a spectral hound that follows the Soucouyant, a shape-shifting witch who sheds her skin at night and flies through the sky as a ball of flame. This hound, burning and breathless, is both curse and companion, sometimes protecting villages from darker spirits, other times hunting the Soucouyant's victims. Older generations said that if you walked home at night and heard a chain dragging behind you, don't look back. That sound wasn't wind. It was the black hound of Abaddon, the spirit enforcer, guarding the boundary between the living and the restless. And then there are the crossroads. In folklore across the world, Europe, Africa, the American South, crossroads are where the worlds overlap. They're the liminal spaces where spirits listen. In West African and later hoodoo traditions, it was said you could meet a spirit, sometimes a man, sometimes a dog, who offered gifts in exchange for your soul or your art. The crossroads demon or the hound of fate wasn't evil by nature. It was transactional. You wanted talent, fame, a voice like fire. The price was simply yourself. It's the same idea that drifted into American blues lore. Robert Johnson, guitar in hand at midnight, whispering to the darkness for inspiration and paying with eternity. Some versions say he didn't meet the devil at all. Just a black dog, sitting and watching as he played his song. Everywhere you go, the black dog stands between worlds, guardian, judge, guide. In one story, he drags souls to hell. In another, he protects them on their way to heaven. And maybe that's the truth hidden in all these tales. The hound isn't chasing us. He's leading us, making sure we don't wander too far from the path, even if we must walk through the dark to find it again. And while the legends of the black dog aren't as commonly spoken of these days, there is an interesting parallel in more recent folklore. You see, not every black dog haunts a churchyard or a storm-beaten coast. Some run beneath a hotter moon, far from the fog and cold of the English countryside across the Atlantic. There's a legend that took root in the rich soil and rich traditions of the island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. There, though, the story changed shape. It grew teeth of its own. When enslaved peoples were brought to the Caribbean, they carried with them ancestral myths of transformation, of spirits that guard the threshold between body and soul. Those stories mingled with European legends of the black dog, of omens and punishment. And what emerged from that mingling wasn't just ghost. It was a mirror of history. They called him Lagahoo. In Trinidad and Tobago, he's not just a spectral dog, but a shapeshifter, part man, part beast, eternally cursed to wander between worlds. By day, a man. By night, something else entirely. Villagers said you could hear him coming long before you saw him. The faint rattle of iron chains, the labored breath of something that shouldn't still be breathing. The Lagahoo runs with phantom hounds, wrapped in ghostly chains that shift with his mood. Some say he's condemned to bear those chains as punishment for crimes committed in life. Others say he wears them to bind the animal spirit within him, so it won't devour what's left of his humanity. And like the black Shuck, the Lagahoo isn't a simple villainous spirit. He's something older, a reminder that no matter where the empire of night spreads, the stories follow us and change us. You see, legend has it that the Lagahoo can become anything: a calf, a horse, a black hound, even a seemingly innocent man. But one detail never changes. Wherever he goes, he carries those chains. And if you meet him on a lonely road, you don't run. You don't speak. You bow your head and whisper a prayer of forgiveness, not just for yourself, but for him. Because in Trinidadian folklore, the Lagahoo isn't a herald of death. He's the embodiment of penance, a restless soul working off his sins night after night until the chains finally fall away. So perhaps the legends of the black dog didn't die when it left the foggy moors of England. Rather, it sailed across oceans, slipped between languages, and found a new home in the Caribbean night and beyond, trading graveyards for cane fields, but keeping its purpose the same. Not a destroyer, a reminder that even in the darkest places, the human spirit can still transform, and the wild will always find its way home. It seems, to me at least, that every culture has given the black dog a name, a shape, a purpose. But strip away the smoke and the superstition, and you start to see something far more familiar in each and every legend. Because this creature, it isn't just out there on the road. It walks with us. In old folklore, the black dog marked those who carried sorrow, guilt, or grief too long. It followed the weary, the sleepless, the ones who had lost their way home, not to punish, but to witness. As though the universe, seeing our burden, sent a companion forged of shadow to carry a piece of it for us. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you enjoyed exploring this legend, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the crossroads of myth and history. And for the full episode, be sure to check out my podcast, Dusk and Dreams, and hear the rest of the legends of the Black Dog. See you next time.